The merger agreement is still pending approval.
We have to consider the antitrust implications before moving forward.
The glass shattered before anyone could react. "Sir!" But it was too late. The crystal whiskey tumbler slipped from his hand, crashing against the polished marble floor of his penthouse, sending shards skidding in every direction. The room fell silent. 20 executives frozen mid-breath, their eyes locked on the man who had never, not once, lost control. Richard Cole. The billionaire who built an empire from nothing. The man who controlled markets, governments, and destinies. And yet, in that moment, he looked like a man whose world had just ended. His chest rose sharply, his fingers trembled. "Cancel the meeting," he said, voice low, strained. No one moved. "I said, cancel it." Chairs scraped, laptops snapped shut. Within seconds, the room emptied, leaving behind nothing but silence and the echo of something breaking far deeper than glass. Richard stood alone, and for the first time in 15 years, he was afraid. Because the message on his phone wasn't just a threat, it was exposure. 3 hours earlier. The city was his. From the 72nd floor, Lego stretched endlessly, cars like ants, people like shadows. Richard stood at the window, adjusting his cufflinks, calm, precise, untouchable. "Your 10 a.m. with the investors is confirmed," your assistant Daniel said, flipping through his tablet. "Also, the media wants a statement about the acquisition." Richard didn't turn. "They'll get it after the signing." "Sir, there's also a personal message flagged as urgent." That made him pause. Richard didn't do personal, not anymore. "From who?" Daniel hesitated. "Unknown sender." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Ignore it." Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir." But as he turned to leave, the phone buzzed again. Once, twice, 3 times. Something about the persistence unsettled him. "Wait," Richard said. Daniel stopped. "Read it." Daniel opened the message. His eyes scanned it once, then again. His face changed. "Sir, I think you should see this yourself." Richard turned slowly, took the phone, and read. "I know what you did 15 years ago." The air shifted. Not visibly, not loudly, but something cracked. Richard's grip tightened around the phone. "Delete it," he said, handing it back. But his voice lacked conviction. Daniel frowned slightly. "Sir, there's more." "Read it." Daniel hesitated, then continued. "If you don't want the world to know the truth about that night, you'll do exactly as I say." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Richard's jaw clenched. "Scam," he said sharply. "People try this every day." But even he didn't believe it, because there was only one night, and no one was supposed to know about it. No one. "Block the number," he added, turning away. Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir." But as he walked out, Richard didn't move. He stood there, staring at the city, but he wasn't seeing Lagos anymore. He was seeing rain, darkness, and blood on his hands. 15 years ago. He wasn't Richard Cole, the billionaire. He was just Richard. Broke, hungry, desperate. The kind of desperate that makes a man forget who he is. That night had started like every other. Too many bills, not enough money, and a future slipping through his fingers. But then came the opportunity. A man, a deal, quick money, no questions asked. He should have walked away. He didn't. And that decision changed everything. "Sir?" Daniel's voice pulled him back to the present. "The investors are arriving." Richard blinked, forcing himself back into control, the version of him the world knew, cold, sharp, unbreakable. "Let's begin," he said. The meeting room buzzed with energy, million-dollar conversations, confident smiles, calculated moves. Richard commanded the room effortlessly. He always did. "Gentlemen," he said at the head of the table, "today we finalize what will become the largest private acquisition in West African history." Heads nodded, pens moved, deals were about to be signed. Then, his phone buzzed again. He ignored it, continued speaking. "By this time next quarter, we will control over 60% of the market share." Buzz. His jaw tightened. Still, he pushed forward. "To control over 60% of the market share." Buzz. Louder this time, insistent, relentless. The room shifted slightly. Eyes flickered. Richard exhaled slowly, then reached for the phone. Just one glance, that's all. "Tick-tock, Richard." His heart skipped. "You have 24 hours. His hand froze. "Or I tell them how you really became a billionaire." That's when the glass slipped. That's when everything changed. Back to present. Richard paced his penthouse like a man being hunted, because he was. "Trace the number," he barked into the phone. "I'm trying to, sir. It's encrypted. It keeps bouncing locations." "Then find who's behind it." "Yes, sir." The call ended. Richard ran a hand through his hair. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had buried that night, erased it, paid for silence, built an empire so powerful that no one would dare question him. So how did it come back? Another message. His phone lit up again. He stared at it, didn't want to open it, but he did. "Meet me tonight, 11 p.m., or tomorrow morning, your empire burns." Attached was a location, an old warehouse, abandoned, forgotten, just like that night. Richard laughed, a dry, hollow sound. "Of course," he muttered. "It had to be a setup, a trap, a bluff. But what if it wasn't? What if this was real?" For the first time in years, Richard Cole didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, across the city, a woman stood in the shadows, watching the skyline, her eyes locked on the tallest building, the one that carried his name, Cole Towers. Her lips curled slightly. 15 years. Now it's your turn. Back in the penthouse, Richard made a decision, the kind of decision that doesn't allow turning back. He grabbed his coat, loaded a gun from his drawer, and headed for the door, because whatever waited for him at that warehouse wasn't just blackmail, it was the past, and the past was finally coming to collect.
The city felt different at night, colder, darker, like it was hiding something, or maybe like it was watching him. Richard drove in silence, his grip tight on the steering wheel as the GPS counted down the final minutes. Streetlights flickered past in a blur, but his mind wasn't on the road. It was on the past. That night, the rain, the deal, and the man who never walked away from it. He swallowed hard. "No," he muttered to himself, "that's over." But deep down, he knew it wasn't. The warehouse stood alone, abandoned, rusting, like a memory no one wanted to revisit. Richard stepped out of the car, scanning the surroundings. No movement, no sound, just the distant hum of the city and the echo of something waiting. He reached inside his coat. His fingers brushed the cold metal of the gun. Steady, controlled, prepared. Then he walked in. The door creaked open. Darkness swallowed him instantly. "Hello?" his voice echoed. Nothing. He took a step forward, then another. The air smelled like dust, and something else, something familiar. Then, click, a single light flickered on above him, and a voice followed. "You came." Richard froze. That voice, he knew it, but that was impossible. "Show yourself," he said, his tone sharp, but his pulse racing. Slow footsteps echoed from the shadows. Then, She stepped into the light. Richard's world stopped, his breath caught. "No," he whispered. Standing before him was a woman he had buried in his memory. Not dead, but gone, or at least that's what he believed. "Elena?" His voice cracked. Elena didn't smile, didn't move closer. She just stood there, her eyes locked onto his, calm, cold, and filled with something far more dangerous than anger. "You look surprised," she said quietly. Richard shook his head, stepping back slightly. "That's not possible. You left. You disappeared." "No," she said, her voice cutting through him. "You made sure of that." Silence fell between them, heavy, loaded. 15 years of unspoken truth hanging in the air. Richard tried to regain control, tried to become the man he was again. "What is this? Some kind of revenge game? You think you can just—" "Don't," she interrupted. One word, and it shut him up instantly. Elena stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "You built an empire, Richard. Congratulations." He said nothing. "But tell me," she continued, her voice tightening, "did you ever think about what it cost?" His jaw clenched. "I worked for everything I have." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "No," she said, "you didn't." Richard's patience snapped. "Enough," he barked. "Say what you came to say and stop wasting my time." Elena's eyes hardened. "Fine." She reached into her bag, pulled out a file, and dropped it on the ground between them. Richard stared at it, didn't want to open it, but he did. His hands moved slowly, carefully, like he already knew. Whatever was inside would destroy him. Photos, documents, bank transfers, signatures, and then a picture. Richard staggered back. "No," he breathed. The picture showed a man, lying on the ground, blood pooling beneath him, rain pouring down, and standing over him was Richard. 15 years ago. "You remember now, don't you?" Elena said quietly. Richard's chest tightened. That wasn't—" "Don't lie," she snapped, her voice echoing through the warehouse, raw with emotion. "You killed him, Richard." "I didn't kill him," Richard fired back. "He attacked me." "And you finished it," she said coldly. Silence, because deep down, they both knew the truth wasn't that simple. Richard ran a hand over his face. "I don't think you understand what happened," he said, his voice lower now. "I had no choice." Elena's expression didn't change. "You always had a choice." Flashback hit him like a wave. The rain, the shouting, the deal gone wrong, the man pulling a knife, the struggle, the moment. Everything crossed a line. "I was trying to survive," Richard whispered. "And I was trying to save you," Elena shot back. That hit harder than anything, because it was true. Back then, Elena was the only person who believed in him, the only one who stood beside him when he had nothing, the only one who begged him not to take that deal. And he didn't listen. "You chose money over everything," she said. "I chose a future," he snapped. "No," she replied. "You chose blood." Silence, thick, painful, unavoidable. Richard looked at her, really looked this time. She wasn't the same. There was strength now, pain, but also purpose. "What do you want?" he asked finally. Elena didn't hesitate. "Everything." Richard frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, stepping closer, so close now he could see the pain behind her eyes, "you're going to lose your empire, the same way you built it." His eyes narrowed. "You think you can just take everything from me?" "I don't think," she said. "I know." She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, then held it up. A video, paused, waiting. Richard's heart dropped. "What is that?" Elena's voice was calm. "That is your confession." His blood ran cold. "What?"
Do you remember that night after it happened, when you were shaking, terrified, and you kept saying, "I didn't mean to do it"? His eyes widened. "No, I recorded it," she finished. The world tilted. Richard staggered slightly. You wouldn't." "I would," she said, "and I will." Silence, but this time it was different, because now Richard understood. This wasn't blackmail. This was execution. "You release that," he said slowly. "You destroy yourself too." Elena smiled faintly. "I already lost everything 15 years ago." That landed hard. "What do you want?" he asked again, his voice quieter now. Elena looked him dead in the eyes and said the one thing he never expected. "I want the truth." Richard frowned. "That's it?" "No," she said, "not just the truth." She stepped closer, so close now he could see the pain behind her eyes. "I want you to tell the world who you really are." His chest tightened. "You're asking me to ruin my own life." Elena shook her head slowly. "No, Richard." Her voice softened, but it cut deeper than anything before. "I'm asking you to finally face it." Silence. Long. Heavy. Unforgiving. Richard looked down at the file, at the picture, at the past he thought he buried. Then he looked back at her. "You have no idea what that will do," he said. Elena didn't blink. "Oh, I do." A pause. "And tomorrow morning," she lifted her phone slightly, "if you don't do it yourself," her voice dropped, cold, final, "I will."
Richard didn't sleep, not even for a second. The city moved on outside his window, cars passing, people laughing, life continuing like nothing was about to collapse. But inside Cole Towers, time had stopped. He sat in the dark, the file still open in front of him, the photo staring back at him like judgment. The man on the ground, the blood, him standing there. 15 years. 15 years of building, climbing, dominating, all resting on one moment, one decision, one secret. His phone buzzed. He didn't need to check. He already knew. Elena. 8 a.m. Your move. Richard exhaled slowly. His chest felt heavy, not from fear, but from something deeper, something he had buried for years. Guilt. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to feel it, not suppress it, not justify it, not run from it, just feel it. Flashbacks flooded him, Elena's voice begging him not to go through with the deal. The man shouting, the knife, the struggle, the moment everything changed. And after, Elena crying, him shaking, his voice repeating over and over, "I didn't mean to do it." And she had recorded it, not to destroy him then, but to remember, to hold the truth. Richard closed his eyes, tight. "Who have I become?" he whispered. The answer came quickly. A man who built success on silence. A man who traded truth for power. A man who thought the past could be buried. But truth doesn't stay buried. The sun began to rise. Light slowly filled the room, and with it came a decision. 8 a.m. Cole Towers was packed. Media, investors, staff, everyone had received the same message. Emergency press conference, Richard Cole. Whispers filled the room. What's going on? Another acquisition? Something big must have happened. And then he walked in. Richard Cole, still dressed sharp, still composed, still powerful. But something was different. There was no arrogance in his eyes, no control, no illusion, just truth.
He stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked out at the crowd, and for a moment, he said nothing. The silence stretched, tension built, cameras zoomed in, hearts waited. Then, he spoke. "My name is Richard Cole." A pause. "And everything you think you know about me," his voice tightened slightly, "is incomplete." The room shifted. Confusion, curiosity, concern. "There's a part of my story," he continued, "that I have hidden for 15 years. Cameras clicked faster. A truth I buried because I was afraid of what it would cost me. His hands tightened slightly on the podium. "But today," he exhaled, "I'm done running." Silence, complete. And then, 15 years ago, I was involved in a deal that went wrong. Gasps. A man died that night. The room exploded. Voices, shock, disbelief. "I didn't plan to kill him," Richard continued, raising his voice just enough to cut through the chaos. "But I was there. I was part of it. And instead of facing the truth," his voice broke, "I buried it." Dead silence. "I built this empire," he gestured, "on top of that secret." Every word landed heavier than the last. "I told myself I had no choice, that I was surviving, that it was in the past." He shook his head slowly. "But the truth is," his voice softened, "I was a coward. That hit harder than everything else. I chose success over truth. I chose silence over responsibility. And for 15 years, his eyes scanned the room, I lived a lie. No one spoke. No one moved. And somewhere in the back, Elena stood, watching. Her expression unreadable, but her eyes locked on him. Richard continued, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect understanding." A pause. "But I owe the truth." He stepped back slightly. "And today," he dropped his voice, "I take responsibility." Silence, heavy, Rio. Cameras kept rolling because this was history. Within minutes, the world knew. News headlines exploded. Billionaire confesses to involvement in death. Richard Cole's dark secret exposed. From empire to scandal overnight. Stocks crashed. Deals collapsed. Partners pulled out. Everything he built started falling. And Richard? He didn't fight it. For the first time in his life, he let it happen. Later that evening, he stood alone, not in his penthouse, but outside, on the street. No security, no power, no title. Just a man. Elena. He turned. She stood a few steps away. "You did it," she said. He nodded. "I had to." A pause. "I'm going to turn myself in," he added. Elena studied him, searching, not for the billionaire, but for the man she once knew. "And now?" she asked. Richard exhaled. "Now I face it." Silence. Then, slowly, Elena nodded. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close to peace. "You should have done this a long time ago," she said. "I know." Another pause. "But you did it now." And for the first time, there was no anger in her voice. Just truth. Richard gave a small, tired smile. "Better late than never, right?" Elena didn't smile back, but she didn't walk away either. And that was enough. As police sirens echoed in the distance, Richard looked up at the sky. Not as a billionaire, but as a man finally free from the weight of a lie. Because sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. End of story. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment, because sometimes the truth hurts, but it also sets you free. Would you have confessed or protected your empire? Let me know below.